What's up, everybody? 49ers off day for practice on Wednesday. Solo guy here. Watch all of Adam Schefter's interview on Pat McAfee today, and just wanted to react to a couple things that he said. I was actually planning to do a little video later on deep down the Twitter world. I can't. For me, I don't like texting, so I don't like having long conversations on Twitter, and I also just don't feel it's the most effective way to get some nuance in, as opposed to everything being black and white. So I actually want to do a video later today. I'll be back live later with something just kind of about everything about the way Trey and Brock is covered. And some people didn't like my grading system yesterday, so we can talk about that. If you have any questions, get those in a little later. Don't forget, here on Haberman and Middlekoff, we are sponsored by our friends at Tito's Handmade Vodka. Tito's Handmade Vodka. Send us pictures. Enjoying your vodka. And feel free to share those however you drink it. I like a little ginger beer mixed in there. That's a good touch. Little ginger beer and some Tito's is a good touch. Crafted to be savored responsibly. Okay, here we go. Adam Schefter on McAfee. I'm going to play a couple of these. We'll react to these. Schefter, of course, talked to the 49ers. Clip number 1 asked about Brock. He said he reached out to multiple Niners. You hear that here. What he says right before this is that he was reading reports that Brock was not that sharp and Brock didn't look good. So here's what Adam Schefter said about that.
Hey, I called up to a couple of people in the 49ers, and they're like, what are they talking about? No, he looked good. Like, they don't know what they're watching. I'm like, okay, well, I'm just telling you that's the report out there. So I can tell you they're happy with the way that Brock Purdy is coming along. Number 1, I think he's tracking right where he needs to be. They're having him throw every third day. And as we said the last time we were on, if he's healthy, he's going to be the guy. It was never a question, right? And right now, all indications are that he's doing very well. And he's coming along the way they want. So that's great.
All right. So there's the first comment on Brock. And this is, I think, a very clear statement from the 49ers to Adam. Partly what that is saying is, he looked good, right? That's the headline there. He looks better than some people are saying. I, for one, have said that I think they've kind of all looked the same, but we'll get to that a little later. He looks good. B, he's also saying, and I think this is kind of the subtext to all of this stuff with Brock, he played in games last year and played very well. So we're not that worried with him about this. We're not nitpicking him in a practice because he established that he's the starter long before these practices started. Obviously, they know on a particular play, on a particular read, what he was supposed to do. They know whether or not he would have been sacked, or at least they can watch the film multiple times to grade it. We just watch it live one time and come up with a grade. So that's part of it, right? Like maybe they have a different opinion than I have or than somebody else has. As I said, I think they've all been better some days than others, and in the end, generally around in the same category. But the Niners told Adam Schefter, Brock Purdy's been good. That's what Schefter just said. So that's the first one. That one's not as controversial. It's not the word, but, I think we can generally reach that conclusion that that's how the 49ers feel. There's another debate to be had about whether that's correct or not, but that is how the 49ers feel. All right, here was clip number 2 from Schefter.
Trey Lance, look, it's a long summer, and I'm not going to overreact to a couple of throws that are on social media, like where he's a little bit off. I could tell you that they felt like he had as good an offseason as he had, and he's more prepared than he's ever been. So let's see what happens over the course of a summer when they're in like we're not even in full pad practices yet.
Yeah, it was this one right here. This one was the one.
But listen, we live in a very reactionary world, Pat. So people want to come up and make judgments right away. And so Trey Lance is trending the right way. Let's see what happens with him this summer. But even if he's trending the right way, I still think Brock Purdy's the starter. I still think that they really are impressed with Sam Darnold. And as I said to you the last time, I thought Sam Darnold was in a great spot to be the number 2 quarterback. So where does that leave Trey Lance? It leaves him for an organization that has gone through quarterbacks the way that you and I go through underwear, right? Like they just need a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so they want to have them ready. And now, okay, so maybe before the trade deadline, if he's coming along, could somebody inquire about him? That's always possible, right? Quarterbacks are currency. They want to bring him along. They were happy. They thought he made a lot of progress during the offseason. They thought it was the best offseason he's had. They thought he was as far along as he's been. So let's see how it plays out for the rest of the summer before we're writing off Trey Lance the way it seems some of these videos on social media have in recent days.
All right, a lot little pieces we could go through there. I agree. I mean, my overall take repeatedly, going back to like the first week of practice when I said Trey Lance was the best quarterback, he was better than Sam Darnold on a particular day, is that I am not giving up on Trey Lance. I don't think they should give up on Trey Lance. But what you heard there from Adam was also, so I shouldn't say but, and what you heard there from Adam was also some sense that he got. He already told us he was on the phone with multiple people in the Niners organization that Sam Darnold is doing well. Okay. Again, two different conversations here. What do we think should be happening? And how do the Niners perceive what is happening? So as it relates to Darnold, like I said, I think they're all kind of in the same spot. So if the Niners have a preference for him, then there's enough that's happened that would allow them to lean with that preference. If they had a preference for Trey, then there's enough that's happened, I think, that would allow them to lean with their preference for Trey. But I think ultimately what he said at the end was by far the best thing. This is what I've been saying a lot. If I were in Trey Lance's ear or Sam Darnold's ear for that matter, I'd say just hang around here. Just hang around. I said this yesterday, even though sometimes I'm told that I'm like super pro Brock Purdy, even though what Schefter just said is far more positive than what I've said based on the practices we've seen with Brock. Is that I think, I said this yesterday, I think it's 50-50 that if everybody's healthy, that Brock is just the 17-game starter. In other words, knowing how seasons go and, you know, what Kyle Shanahan thinks of Sam and maybe what Trey Lance might be able to give him, not even factoring injuries, somebody's getting benched at some point this year. I think it's a 50. I'm not predicting it. I'm just saying, I think it's 50-50. I don't think we know for sure that Brock Purdy is a franchise quarterback. We certainly don't have a lot of evidence or any evidence really that Sam Darnold is. And we don't have much evidence of anything when it comes to playing games with Trey Lance, right? He has by far the fewest games played of all these guys. So if I were in the ear of any of the guys that are competing, and Brock right now is not competing. So if I were in the ear of Sam and Trey, what I'd say to them is, guys, keep competing. You're close enough. That's how I have come out of these practices. And I'll talk about it later in another video because I scored Brock higher than Trey yesterday, and that created some discussion about my scoring system and really are there biases and that kind of thing. But I think it's all been close enough that any of these guys should just keep doing what they're doing because the odds of one or two or three of them getting a shot that we didn't think they were going to get, I think are pretty good. I think it's good for Trey. I think it's good for Sam. Like their odds are good. I'm glad Schefter didn't mention Brandon Allen there because as I've said, to me, the Brandon Allen to number 3 quarterback thing, it's not all that close. Trey Lance is an easy pick for me over Brandon Allen based on what we've seen in practice. Not close. Are they going to bring other considerations in and obviously a potential trade, all that? Sure, that might come into play. But in terms of what I've been trying to stick to, let me watch the practices and tell you how the practices look, or at least as part of the discussion, let me stick to that. It's not close, right? Brandon Allen's just not in the class of those other 3 guys. And from a physicality standpoint, Brock's not in their class of Sam and Trey in terms of, when they throw the football 15 to 20 to 30 yards down the field, not go balls down the sidelines, but over the middle of the field, the ball gets there quicker with those guys. So we try to go through kind of the nuance of all that. And like I said, yesterday, there were some takes on my takes. Daniel here says, I thought people didn't understand properly enough the metaphor. I had a system yesterday, if you missed it, of kind of using golf scoring, right? Where you have pars, which are break-even throws. You have birdies, which are above average, and bogeys, which are, below average or bad. And there was some feedback I got on that. Some of it was fair. Some of it I thought missed the point. And so I'll revisit that, but that'll be in another video. Joey, you can't stop Brandon Allen. You can't even hope to contain him. Elite QB1s with a Mahomes-like howitzer and the running ability of prime Mike Vick. Purdy is that dude. Well, the Niners have told us repeatedly, and I have no problem. Like, no problem with Purdy. I don't know how you could, given what he did. If Trey Lance had put together his numbers, we wouldn't be even talking about Brock Purdy, right? The season that he had last year. Partly because you see Trey's physicality and you start dreaming about what it could be. Brock looks more like Jimmy. So it's not as you're a little more skeptical. You need to see more. And I'm for it. We need to see more. And it's why I say that there could be the day when Trey is coming. But the Sam Darnold thing is very real for him, and he's going to have to overcome that. Yellow Spice says, I thought the golf thing was... anyway, I don't want to get to this because this will be another video. I thought so too, but not everybody knows the golf scoring. So maybe I made it a little more complicated there. I don't know. I felt good about it. Still feel good about it. Stay the course. My advice to Sam and Trey. Yeah. Trey Lance has done yeoman's job at getting better. He's looking and throwing the best he has ever looked. He wants to be here and will be here. He's grinded his way into the conversation. Good. I agree. I do think he's looked really good. I thought yesterday he threw, and I'm with Adam, especially when it comes to some of these like that particular drill that went viral yesterday, the old Barstool video, or the video that was old that was on Barstool, is like I've watched, guys. It's a tough drill. I do, by the way, like I do grade one-on-one throws, not just the team drills, because it's a chance to see a guy throw the football, which is what we're talking about here. And all these things add up a little bit. So, does one bad throw, for example, Danny Gray had a drop yesterday. And that in and of itself is not a big deal, except I've seen multiple days of Danny Gray with a drop. Brandon Ayuk doesn't drop the ball. It just doesn't happen. Ronnie Bell, a couple straight days of no drops in practice, to me significant because he had a couple days that I'd watched him where he had a drop. In other words, I'm agreement with what Adam said there at the end. I'm not for taking one play, blowing it up. With Trey, though, there has been a particular throw, and this got into the debate yesterday, that he's missed repeatedly. Now, Brock has done some risky things. I've said going back to last regular season and then through camp, Brock's got this Favre streak in him that could get him into trouble. That's fair criticism. But anyway, sorry, to Terrier Dome's part, or Terror Dome, to that point, yeah, I think Trey has thrown a prettier ball in this camp than I've seen him throw. The reason I got off on that tangent was he threw one deep ball knuckleball yesterday to Debo, and it was a bad throw, and I gave him a bogey for it. It was not a pro throw, but I think by and large he's made a lot more pro throws this year. I think the work he's done has shown. Now there's just a certain level of work that he's done that we need to see when the games go live, but that's the beauty. We're going to play preseason games here starting next week, and it's going to be live. And we'll get to see how comfortable he looks. So I still hope he gets that shot. It's weird to hope for something with one particular quarterback because I want to see what Brock Purdy looks like when he plays 17 games. I am intrigued. What does Sam Darnold look like playing for Kyle Shanahan? I want to see Trey Lance play more football. You'd say generally all those things can't happen in the same place. With the 49ers, it might, because it has happened historically. But yes, I agree that I think Trey's work has shown in the way that he throws the football. Ernest says, you're doing great work. I made a comment about your grading system yesterday about the golf. I think if you were to say what par, birdie, all that stuff means, it'd be a lot easier to understand. Noted. It was what my previous system, which I'll still go to from time to time, was throws above replacement, like wins above replacement. And anyway, I won't get into it here. But the point is, yesterday I was out there just trying to think, I didn't think that was a good enough system. It wasn't specific enough. And so when I was standing out there on the practice field yesterday, it was not something I had plotted out. The thought crossed my mind, what if I try and do it this way? What are going to be the benefits and what are going to be the flaws? But as I said, I'm going to get into another video later on that, so I don't want to distract here from the Schefter reaction. Adam told us what the Niners are thinking, and it's clear. The Niners view Brock as the starter. No debate. It's also clear that they view Sam based on what he said there. I think it's clear based on what Adam said, kind of that Trey's been good, but they're really interested in Sam Darnold. And as I've said, I think that goes back to the draft. I think they, remember Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield went 1, Sam Darnold went 3, then Josh Allen went. I think the Niners would have drafted Sam. So I think they're intrigued. Kyle's intrigued by him, all that. So I think that's what I'm prepared for. The Brandon Allen is the third quarterback and Trey gets cut thing. I am not here for that. I disagree with Mike Silver on that being a proper outcome, but part of what he was writing was be prepared for it. So you got to keep that in the back of your mind. AK49er says too soon to cut Trey. We should shop him at the deadline to a team like the Bucs or the Raiders for a player that can help us win now. That's what Schefter said and this is the Niners MO. And this was their MO last year with Jimmy. And I said it all last year. Do not get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo unless you have to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Like, don't cut him because you owe it to him or because you think it's going to be a distraction or because it's weird that he's throwing balls behind the bleachers where the fans are. No one's allowed to film it while real practice is going on in these other 2 grass fields out here, right, in Santa Clara. You hold on. You do what's best for the team first and foremost. And what's best for the team was to hold on to that asset as long as possible. I think cutting Trey Lance would be for Brandon Allen. It's just I would not understand the logic of getting rid of. I think part of what makes I don't think he's an asset because I think you're suddenly going to trade him for a third I think he's an asset because he might end up playing for you, and I think he is showing improvement. So I would not give up on him, and I haven't given up on him. Despite what people would tell you. Nees says, I think they got Sam Darnold as a precaution that Trey didn't make improvement this offseason in camp. Yes. I also think you could simplify it and say they got Sam Darnold because they liked Sam Darnold and Sam Darnold was available. So that's part of it. I also think they thought it's possible we like Sam more than we like Trey. If Trey Lance had Brock Purdy's season last year, would they have still signed Sam Darnold? I think yes. Would he be competing with Trey Lance like he is now? Not a chance in hell. Just like Sam Darnold is not competing with Brock Purdy. In that scenario, Sam Darnold would not be competing with Trey Lance. But I still think they would have signed him. And Brock Purdy would be the one battling with Sam Darnold for the number 2 quarterback spot. Or maybe he wouldn't be getting snaps at all. He'd be getting 3 snaps again like last year. So I think Sam Darnold, I think all of that stuff is true. He's here just because he was available. They liked him. Now, maybe Sam would have said, hey, you know what? I'm looking at that situation. Trey Lance is clearly the number 1 guy. I got to go somewhere else to help myself, right? You could argue that in that scenario, he wouldn't have been here because in this version, he looks at it and says, yeah, there's a chance I could play there. But they would have been interested in Sam Darnold if Trey Lance had 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, won 9 games to finish out last season, and was the clear-cut number 1. He just wouldn't be competing with Trey. So I do think part of it is that basic of we like him, he wants to be here, let's sign him. You add to it all the weird dynamics, and it just makes the situation a little more, hairier. Media reacting to the media. Yes. I mean, that is something to be said. That's a fact, right? This is me reacting to what Schefter said. But really, it's just, some of these things that you put in the headline or that you put in the thumbnail, it's just, I get like 3 words or 5 words to try and describe what's about to happen. And I think the news of the day is Schefter repeating what the 49ers told him. Adam Schefter picked up the phone, talked to multiple 49ers people. And so I think what it does is it gives us some insight into how the 49ers are thinking. So yeah, I get it. Reaction to reaction videos. Not my favorite way to label things, but to me, it's the shorthand way to explain what we're doing here. Also, it took me a while. I saw one Schefter video on Twitter today, X, and then I was like, well, what else did he say? So then I went and watched the video, and it took me, 25 minutes of my time to remember to go get it, to record it. So in some ways I am kind of, I think I'm consolidating. McAfee deserves the views for the interview he did, but putting the stuff in one place that's relevant to you. So I feel like I'm doing a service in a weird way. All right. Anyway. Okay. That's that. This was going to be quick, and it was quick-ish. I do want to have a conversation about QB, bias and my grading system. I'll be back out there Thursday. Should I change it? Some people have told me that I should. And I've already agreed, you know what? I did something wrong yesterday. So I'll get into that in the next video coming up a little later on. Got to have lunch and do a couple things here as well. But thanks for checking in. Hit that like button. That helps out. Subscribe to the channel. We definitely appreciate that. And yeah, check out the podcast down in the description below. And we'll get back to some of the stuff that people think about the coverage later on today. Agree. Later, y'all.